So, fun fact, I actually had this video ready 2 months in advance, and it's potentially going to be late now because literally maybe 2 weeks before it was supposed to go live, I had a sudden epiphany and I realized that I didn't actually express the points that I wanted to express in the way that I wanted to express them. If that makes like literally any sense. So here I am 10 days before this video is supposed to go live, trying to re-record it and hoping that it'll just be live on time. Story-driven adventure games are really interesting in the fact that they can technically qualify as a game and a movie at the same time, considering the fact that there's a motorbike outside. Shut up, mate. Considering the fact that you're just sitting down watching a bunch of cutscenes all in a row, and then occasionally you have to press a button to give input or do a quick time event or something like that. They're interactive movies, and a lot of people actually argue about whether or not they are games. But we're not here to talk about whether or not these games, qualify as movies, qualify as both, or neither. They're media fluid for all I care. No, instead we're actually here to talk about a problem that comes within the writing of a game or a piece of media like this that a lot of people tend to throw at these pieces of media without fully understanding why it's been written the way that it's written. And that, my dear friends, is the illusion of choice argument. Howdy heck and hey my dudes. Now, real quick before we start, this video is sponsored by me and my graphic novel, Forget Me Not Aconite. Paperbacks, hardcovers, and ebooks are now available worldwide. Simply click the link in the description below to start your purchase. If you like zombies, drama, and character-driven narratives a la The Walking Dead, then there's definitely something here for you. So, I mean, you know, there's no harm in giving it a quick look, am I right? There's also a Patreon where you can support the graphic novel's continuation, or if you want something a little less renewable, you can buy me a coffee. Any bit of support to keep the series going is greatly appreciated. Alright, now back to the video. We're going to be talking specifically about Telltale's The Walking Dead series for the sake of this argument and for the sake of the video, simply because it's the one that I'm most familiar with. It's a game that I hold very near and dear to my heart, and while it may not have been the first game of its kind to kind of have this input, like you change the narrative type thing, it definitely was the one that kind of popularized this type of game and really brought it to the forefront of this kind of media. So what I intend to do is take a couple of scenes from Telltale's The Walking Dead that people have called the illusion of choice moments. I'm not going to go through all of them because there tend to be quite a bit of them, but I'm going to pick some of the more notable ones in my personal opinion. And then we're going to look at the context surrounding the scene, the characters that are involved in the scene, and the context behind them and their motivations. And we're going to try and figure out whether or not this is just blatant illusion of choice, like a game trying to railroad you a certain way, or if it's actually really clever writing considering the characters and the context involved. Spoiler alert, I'm pretty biased towards one specific way, and if you read the title of the video, you probably know which way I'm leaning. Now, something that I want to clear up right away before we even start with this video is that this video is not made to attack people who use the illusion of choice argument. This is an argument that even I myself have used in specific circumstances, and considering the examples that I've picked for this video, I will actually be using the illusion of choice argument myself against certain scenes. The root problem with the illusion of choice argument isn't the people who use the argument, but rather it's the way that these games are advertised. In decision-based gameplay, you'll often see games being marketed as, you control the narrative, you choose who lives, who dies, you are the one controlling the butterfly effect, and it's very heavily implied that decisions you make are going to be the make or break of the story. And unfortunately, as cool as it would be to play God and literally have character stories at your beck and call where you can decide who lives and who dies, the fact of the matter is, in order to tell a compelling story, that cannot be the case. In order to have a compelling story, you need to be able to have other characters that have their own goals, their own motivations, and their own reasons for doing what they're doing in order to kind of shift the narrative in a specific way and keep things on track. An example of how not doing that and not having their own characters with their own goals can make a story fall apart is Detroit Become Human. Now, I would just like to say that I love Detroit Become Human. I think it's a fantastic game. I had a lot of fun playing it. I've gone through multiple playthroughs to try and get different endings. It's really fun. But because everything is so malleable and how all of the main characters are played by you, they had to, it's kind of a technological masterpiece when you really think about it, just how many endings. I think in my original recording for this video, I said that there were like 80 endings or something like that. And while that's really fun and that really adds to the replayability of the game, because everything is so malleable and all of these endings had to be coded, the second you really think about the story and like the main plot of the story, it kind of just crumbles in on itself. That's not a hot take. It's been all over the internet that the story of Detroit Become Human... Detroit? It's all over the internet, people saying that Detroit Become Human is a very lackluster game in terms of its story and how your decisions in the end don't actually mean anything because you're making literally all of the decisions. It sounds weird and kind of paradoxical when I word it like that, but if you've played Detroit Become Human, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So yeah, I think that game is a prime example of why having every single choice affect the story and why having such a malleable story doesn't actually make a good story. In fact, it barely makes a story at all. And with that being said, let's go through some of these Walking Dead examples that I picked. The first one that I picked, I actually find really interesting. These aren't in chronological order, by the way. I should probably stress that. These scenarios that I've picked are not in chronological order. These scenes, I'm going through the order of literally the moment they popped in my brain. So this first example is here because it's the first example that I thought of when I wanted to make this video. This is actually the scene that made me want to make this video. This first scene comes from Season 1, Episode 2, Starved for Help. In this scene, you've been locked in a meat locker with Kenny, your alleged best friend at this current point in the story, Lily, the butt-headed, kind of up herself, paranoid, alleged leader of the group, and her elderly, kind of racist, very aggressive and slightly bigoted father who has a heart condition, Larry. Oh, and also Clementine. Clementine is there too. Larry is aggressively banging on the door, demanding that the captors let him out, and then eventually this causes too much stress on his heart. He has a heart attack, collapses, and allegedly, supposedly, we don't really know, dies. Both Lily and Kenny panic, but both for very different reasons and in very different ways. Lily panics and thinks that there's still a chance to save her father and begins desperately trying to perform CPR and bring him back. Kenny, on the other hand, reminds us that the zombie virus is airborne and that if Larry dies, we're going to be trapped in a locker with, and I quote, a 6'4", 300-pound, seriously pissed off dead guy. Which, yeah, that's pretty concerning. Both Lily and Kenny turn to you to help them in their specific situation. Lily is begging you to help her give her father CPR, and Kenny is trying to get you to side with him and crush Larry's skull before he has a chance to turn, if he's even dead at all. Now, naturally, considering the topic of this video, there is only one outcome to the situation no matter what you pick. But I'm gonna play the scene for you regardless, just so that you can hear both Lily and Kenny's side of the arguments and give you just a little bit of context before I start giving you more context on Kenny and Lily's characters.
I'll break that damn door down!
Dad, you can't get... Easy!
Oh, God.
Dad? No! Dad, come on! Dad! Oh, God, he stopped breathing. I think he's had a heart attack.
Shit. Is he dead?
He's not dead! Somebody help me!
Fuck. If he's dead...
He's not dead!
What has to happen, Lee? Think about it. You saw that poor bastard at the motel? How fast he turned?
What are you saying?
Lily, I'm sorry. I truly am. But in a few minutes, we're gonna be stuck in a locked room with a 6'4", 300-pound, seriously pissed off dead guy.
Fuck you! We can bring him back! Lee!
We'll mourn him later. But right now, we have to keep him from coming back.
No! God damn it, Kenny! He's not dead!
Lily can still save him.
I wish she could, believe me, I do. But that man is dead. You both know what happens next.
Look, Kenny, back at the drugstore when we all thought Duck was bitten, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe we should do the same now.
That was different. Duck wasn't bitten. But come on, we know this guy's not gonna make it. Remember what Ben said. Gotta destroy the brain. Come on, Lee. You can't be in the middle on this one. You gotta have my back this time.
God damn it, Lee, I need you! Please help me!
Now, I love Telltale's The Walking Dead more than anything. It was one of, if not the main inspiration for my graphic novel series, Forget Me Not, and I promise the sequel is coming, please. So, very recently, I've been trying to get my best friend, who also happens to co-write and help me edit my Forget Me Not scripts, to play through this game so we can kind of have an idea of why I love it so much. I wanted to share that experience with him. And while he and I were playing through this game, we decided that we were going to side with Lily, and we were going to try and resuscitate Larry because she brought up a good point. He wasn't dead yet. there was still a chance, you know? Now, considering this scene is being brought up in the context of the illusion of choice, we know that this is only going to go one way. And regardless or not of whether you side with Kenny or Lily, Larry will get his skull crushed by a salt lick. And when that scene came up, my friend's reaction was really, really interesting. He lowered the controller, he stared at the screen blankly for a moment, trying to process what he had just seen, and then immediately he switched into anger. Kenny, what the fuck? Larry was still alive. There was still a chance. We didn't have to kill him yet. He was enraged. And while yes, on a technical and surface level, this qualifies as being an illusion of choice moment, the fact that his reaction wasn't to cry illusion of choice and he instead reacted to the scene as if he was with real life people is very interesting to me. Both Lily and Kenny can be explained as family oriented in the sense that they would do whatever it takes to keep their family alive. You see this with Kenny in earlier scenes while he goes to save Duck and then leaves you to fend for yourself or for other people to fend for themselves. He'll do whatever it takes for his wife and his son. And then you also see it in Lily where she goes to great lengths in order to make sure her father has the heart medication he needs in order to keep going, and becomes increasingly distressed and worried and paranoid when you struggle to find it in the pharmacy or you can't even get into the pharmacy. And so in this scene where Larry collapses on the floor, you can see how both of them have their family-oriented mode kind of switched on. Lily freaks out and needs to save her father. That's her father. That's where the familial instinct is. That's all she has left of the regular world, and so she's doing everything she can to try and protect that. But then you also see this familial instinct switch on in Kenny, where he realizes that he's in a bit of a situation, and if he's stuck in a locker with this massive, angry, zombie old man, then how is he going to be able to protect his family? How is he going to be able to get out of the locker and go grab his wife and kid from these psychos that currently have them in their custody? Kenny loves and respects his family to a fault, where he will neglect others, he will actively put others in harm's way, and he will just, the world doesn't exist. When his family is in danger and his family needs him, the rest of the world does not exist, and you can see that very, very clearly in this scene. And in the scenes that follow, when he's deliberately disobeying whatever you want him to do and actively putting himself, and by extension yourself, in harm's way just so that he can get his family. There's no logical train of thought, because all he's thinking about is his wife and his son and how to get back to them. And so while yes, this is an illusion of choice moment, I think this was an incredibly necessary moment for Kenny's character arc. This is what I was talking about when I say that it's very important that you have other characters that have their own motivations and their own reasons for doing what they're doing in order to make a compelling story, because half the story of Telltale's The Walking Dead is the relationships with the characters that you create. These characters have as much drive and motivation and power to change the narrative as you do, and that's what makes it so compelling. Your actions do influence the story, but your actions are not the be-all, end-all of what happens in the story, and I think that's what makes these much more interesting to play through. Another example of the illusion of choice being necessary in order to further develop a character also happens to involve Lily. As I record this, I realized that she is actually quite controversial when it comes to The Walking Dead. At the end of Season 1, Episode 1, there's a big kerfuffle in the pharmacy that you're in, and you have to choose between saving Doug or saving Carly in this situation. They've both been grabbed by zombies, and you only have time to save one. However, I do fall into the part of the community that thinks you could have saved both of them if you went to save Carly first, and then you just grabbed Carly's gun and shot at the zombies that were grabbing Doug. That would have been a very viable option, but Telltale wanted you to make a decision and let people die, so. The person that you save ends up sticking around for only a couple of episodes. I think they stick around until episode maybe 3? I'm not too sure. But eventually there's some shenanigans that go down in the hotel. Lily thinks that there's some supplies that are being stolen and becomes really paranoid and doesn't know who to trust. And after the events that happen in this episode, I believe it was episode 3, shit starts to really hit the fan. Ben is the newest recruit of our team, and so he's the easiest one to single out as being a traitor, and because of this, Lily just hammers down on him completely and totally. Like, she's relentless. This poor boy is just being demolished. Lily is threatening violence. She's threatening to, like, cause physical harm to Ben, to kick Ben out of the group and that he's not worthy and this, that, and the other. And depending on whether or not you saved Carly or Doug will depend on how they react. Carly is very aggressive and abrasive, and Doug is very dismissive and just wants the fight to stop, which we will get into in a minute. And unfortunately, regardless of who you saved in Season 1, Episode 1, right now, in this very moment, with the tensions being this high, the person that you saved will end up dying at the hands of Lily. I'm gonna play the scene for both Doug and Carly right now, just to give you a bit of context before we start talking about why I think this is good writing.
Get more food, more medicine, anything.
You're making it worse on yourself.
I just don't want to be on my own.
You should have thought of that. Do we need any more evidence than this?
Evidence or not, this isn't any way to treat one of us.
I've heard enough out of you, okay, Doug? Kenny, what's it gonna be?
Just give me a damn minute.
Ben, you have until Kenny kills that walker to tell me it was you.
No!
Ben!
Lily!
This is about trust, and I've never trusted you.
Lily, lay off.
I can't, Lee. You know I
Please
can't.
stop. Please don't kick me out of the group.
We won't.
Tell me. Now.
Please, let's just get back in
That's
the RV.
not happening.
I can't handle this.
There. I got him. Now, what the fuck's the problem?
Ben!
No! We don't need all these votes. What do I have to do for you to trust me? I'll do anything. I'll do watches for months.
Huh, the hell you will.
I'll get more food, more medicine, anything.
You
Just
think any of that is good now?
Just let me stay, please. God, please.
You're making it worse on yourself.
I just don't want to be on my own.
You should have thought of that. Do we need any more evidence than this? Fuck evidence! Stop treating him like this! Shut up, Carly! Ugh, I've heard enough out of you! Kenny, what's it gonna be?
Just give me a damn minute.
Ben, you have until that walker is dealt with to tell me it was her and not you! Stop this! You're torturing him!
No!
Ben, stop! This is about trust, and I've never trusted you.
Tell her. Just do it, Ben.
Lee, Jesus, who are you right
Tell
now?
her what? She'll kick me out of the group.
We won't. We'll understand.
Tell me, now.
There. I got him.
Please, let's just get back
That's
in the
not
RV.
happening.
You think you're some tough bitch, don't you? Like nothing can hurt you. But you're just a scared little girl. Get the fuck over it. Take a page from Lee's book and try helping somebody for once.
Now, what the fuck's the problem?
Now, once again, you could cry illusion of choice, because even though you chose to save this person, they end up dying regardless. But let's take a look at Doug and Carly's characters, respectively. Doug is soft and squishy and adorable and just, oh my god, I love him. Sorry. What I meant to say was Doug is a humanitarian in every sense of the word. He's very kind, he always goes out of his way to help other people, he seems to value the life of others over his own, and his main motive is to keep people together, keep them as a team, maintain the peace so that they can all survive together. Doug will turn down food that you give him because he feels like he owes his life to Lee for saving him. He's super nerdy with computers and incredibly resourceful, trying to do his part in order to keep the group safe without using excessive violence. When conflict does arise, he's one of, if not the first person to try and de-escalate the situation so that it can be talked about civilly and people can get on with their lives peacefully. So when Lily goes cuckoo bananas, decides not to listen to Doug, Lee, and Kenny, and then decides that she wants to shoot Ben, it makes perfect sense that Doug would pull Ben out of the way. Doug is all about maintaining peace, preserving life, and making sure that we're able to get through this together as a team. He wants to protect his teammate because, evidence or not, this isn't how we treat people, this isn't how we treat humans, this isn't how we treat one of us. He wanted to de-escalate the situation as quickly as possible. And unfortunately, him trying to protect another life cost him his own. That makes perfect sense for the way that he was characterized in the brief time that he was alive. Carly, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. She's confrontational, she's strong-headed, she's strategic and really smart, and so you might be wondering, if she's the complete opposite to Doug in terms of characterization, then how does it make sense for her to have also died in this situation? Simple. The circumstances around her death aren't exactly the same as Doug's. They're actually quite different. Whereas Doug was trying to de-escalate the situation, tell us that we can sit down and talk things out and just generally try to mellow things over, Carly was the complete opposite. She was completely antagonistic towards Lily. She was constantly pushing Lily's buttons. They butt heads quite a bit in this confrontation. Rather than trying to settle things peacefully like Doug wanted to, Carly's main objective was to bring Lily down a peg. She wasn't in charge, she wasn't the leader, and it was about time someone put her in her place, at least in Carly's opinion. And so, when tensions are high, Lily wants someone to take accountability for the food that's stolen, and Carly is continuously antagonizing her and trying to make her feel stupid because of her suspicions. It makes sense that the anger that she originally had towards Ben would then be targeted towards Carly, because Carly is questioning her authority. She's trying to minimize Lily's feelings and suspicions, and she's trying to defend someone who, in Lily's opinion, is a traitor to the group. And defending Ben, the objective traitor in the situation, makes Carly also a traitor in this situation, and so in order for Lily to protect her authority, she had to put Carly in place. See how, despite how Doug and Carly were fundamentally different, like right down to their very core, the fact that they both die in episode 3 and the differences towards the circumstances around their death makes sense, and whether you cry illusion of choice or not, the way that it was written is enough for it to not feel forced and for it to feel natural for each character respectively. The other thing regarding Lily in this situation is whether you choose to take her back into the RV or not, she is going to run away. And in the grand scheme of things, if you choose to take her with you, then the situation can actually end up being kind of worse for you. If you choose to abandon Lily and leave her on the side of the road, then that's it. She's abandoned, she's on the side of the road. If you choose to keep her in the RV, you get the opportunity to talk to her a couple more times, but like I said, she ends up leaving regardless, of her own conviction this time. Both of these characters' deaths were written in a way that makes logical sense for them and like how their character was supposed to develop and thus end. But we also need to talk about how this scene characterizes Lily. Right off the bat, Lily is being presented as kind of controlling, kind of uptight. She's a self-proclaimed leader of the group. She puts herself in charge of doing inventory and stock regularly. She gives people roles to fill in order to make the hotel more secure. She is very, very much a control freak, but like in a kind of light way, you know, kind of annoying, kind of micromanagey, but it's fair enough considering the situation she's in. However, losing her father to the hands of Kenny, and also potentially you, depending on what decision you made, triggers a downward spiral within Lily as her mental health continues to deteriorate and she doesn't quite fully understand how to cope with what is happening. Kenny, someone who she butted heads with but at the end of the day trusted enough to sleep in the same area as him and collaborate with him, betrayed her. Killed her father when she thought that he was still alive. And so naturally her paranoia gets cranked to 11 and she goes into this dog-eat-dog world where she becomes very violent when she doesn't get what she wants, thus the threatening violence on Ben and the literal murder of Carly and Doug, which was originally an attempted murder on Ben. I honestly think that this scene right here where she gets super paranoid and she starts thinking that people are stealing supplies and all of this anger and aggression and stuff would not have made sense if there was an option for you to keep Larry alive. Her mental state wouldn't have deteriorated this much this quickly if there was an option where Larry was alive, because then she would still have that rock, she would still have that safety, and she probably wouldn't have as much anger towards the group. It's my little fan theory that all of this aggression and tension was building up over time ever since Kenny killed her father, and so a lot of this anger that she's directing at Ben and Carly and I guess kind of towards Doug originally stems from that one moment where she's been angry and vengeful and she just hasn't been able to execute it, and so her brain sees this as a kind of outlet, a demonstration of power over the group. Which is an incredibly tragic but also equally captivating character arc for Lily to go through, and it's very, very interesting to watch play out. This is why I play games like this. Continuing the trend of talking about Lily, this directly feeds into my next demonstration of the illusion of choice and why I think this also has a really, really good way of tying into other characters' motivations and goals and really, really caps off Lily's character arc in the story. And that that is the decision that you make after she kills Carly or Doug, depending on who you took with you. See, once Lily has decided to go pew-pew on some of your teammates, you have the decision of whether or not you take her with you and decide what to do with her then, or you just abandon her on the side of the road then and there. And regardless of what you pick, she's going to end up leaving the group, and by extension, I think it actually ends up worse for you if you bring her with you, because she ends up stealing your RV, but the end result is the same. You're left either without the RV or with a broken down RV and without Lily. This time without Lily of her own volition and not something that you could control. And while the dialogue you can have between Lee and Lily in this scene doesn't change no matter who you chose to bring with you and who Lily ended up killing, the person that she ended up killing and the context around how they died does change how these lines can be read and how they can be interpreted.
Drop it.
Holy fuck.
Kenny, what's happening?
Keep duck away from the windows. Jesus Christ. Get in. We're leaving this crazy bitch.
She couldn't be trusted, Lee. I swear. Please.
Just get in. We'll figure out what to do with you.
It's a bad idea, Lee. She's a murderer, for shit's sake.
Murderer? Lee's killed before and I forgave him. You've killed before and I'll forgive you.
Bullshit,
You
you
both
will.
know we
You've
do.
been
It
planning
has
to
to
get
be
me this
done.
entire time.
I was trying to protect all of us. I don't have anything left.
Whatever. Just get in.
Hey, Lily. Lily.
I'm sitting here tied up like an animal while you guys decide what to do with me.
It's not like that.
Then what's it like? I'm leaving.
Don't move. Don't you fucking move.
I'm not going to hurt you. Come with me. We could take the RV right now. He left the keys in it.
Come on, Lily.
Didn't think you would say yes.
I can't let you take the RV. Don't be crazy.
You're not letting me take it. Sorry, Lee. I really am.
Holy shit. She's stealing the RV.
Lily!
Come back here, you crazy bitch! Fuck! Stop!
We're fucked.
Yeah, we are.
In the universe where Doug is the one that Lily ends up putting down, her lines come across as if she recognizes that what she did was wrong because she killed the wrong person, but like, you know what I mean. She went from being the one in charge to being the one that's detained, and it's humiliating. She's become a monster to the group and she has no free will or conviction of her own, and so stealing the RV is kind of taking that freedom back. She recognizes that what she's done is wrong and she doesn't want to be with this group anymore, but she also cannot let go of that control and that freedom, and thus that is why she leaves. She's terrified of the fact that she is not in control of this situation because of what she's done. In the scenario where Carly is the one that Lily ended up offing, this comes across very different and, in my personal opinion, kind of spiteful. Carly might be dead, but at the end of the day, she's the person who won this situation. She got what she wanted. Lily was knocked down a couple of pegs. She fell from grace. People don't trust her anymore. She is not the leader of the group. It's humiliating for her, really. And so, as a kind of power play to show that she is still the one in power, she is still the one that has control, she steals the RV as one last fuck you to the group. And considering that right from the very beginning, Lily has been shown to be a bit of a control freak, very paranoid, and likes to be the one in power regardless or not of how the people around her feel, this not only is a perfect interpretation of her character, but it's also, in my personal opinion, the perfect way to send her off. It's also kind of humbling to the player, in a way. Like, Lily was antagonized and made to be the villain and ends up leaving either by force or of her own volition because she couldn't let go of her control of the group. She needed to be able to control everything. And so if you decide that you want to keep her around, this is the game literally telling you, hey, you can't control everything. People are going to do what they want regardless, and kind of kicking you out of your own Lily moment, I guess. Now, Season 1 of Telltale's The Walking Dead was considered one of, if not the best story-driven adventure game of its time, period. While I don't feel comfortable saying it single-handedly revitalized the entire genre, it was definitely a big part in why these games became so popular again. The characters were compelling, the story was gripping, people were obsessed with it. And do you know how many endings this game has? 1. That's right, the game that was considered one of, if not the best story-driven narrative of its time only has one ending, and there's actually a lot of narrative reasons for this. The main reason being the reason that I probably agree with the most, and that's the idea that having multiple endings to a game like this would kind of trivialize the entire experience and make it more like a game and less like the narrative experience that Telltale wanted. I can't remember where I heard this from. If I do, I'll leave a link to it in the description, but there was one person who said it in a way that I think perfectly encapsulates this idea. Imagine you were playing through the finale of Season 1 of Telltale's The Walking Dead. Yoli gets bitten, there's that huge moment with Clementine, they're like all crying and stuff, and you get the ending that we got. But then you go and talk to a friend about said ending, and they turn around and tell you that they got an ending where cutting off Lee's arm worked. They did it in time and Lee survived and he's able to continue living with Clementine. The second you hear that there was a possibility for a better ending and that you could have done something better for these characters, it kind of ruins the experience. And while yes, it does add to the replayability of the game, it kind of trivializes the entire message that Telltale was going for, because you're not looking at it as, oh my god, this is such a sad story. You're looking at it now as an, okay, how do I do better? How do I improve this? And you're looking at it more as a completionist, if that makes sense. TLDR, I honestly think that the message of the game would not have hit as hard or been as impactful with others, or I honestly don't even think the game would have blown up as much if it had multiple endings and it did that trivialization of its own story. And to be fair, I would like to say that Season 1 of Telltale's The Walking Dead is the season that gets the least amount of criticism when it comes to talking about the illusion of choice. And I think that's because when it did have those elements of the illusion of choice, it was handled really, really well, at least in my personal opinion. I already gave you a bunch of examples as to why I think they handled the illusion of choice well, so if you still disagree with me, honestly, why are you watching this video? The season that gets the most amount of criticism in terms of the illusion of choice, I personally believe would have to be the season that directly follows this, Season 2 of the series. And I see a lot of arguments for and against in terms of whether or not the illusion of choice in Season 2 is believable or not. I personally lean on more on the side that it is believable, simply for the fact that within Season 2, Clementine is, I believe, like 10 years old or something. And while yes, I do honestly think that in a decision-based game, you do want your decisions to have a little bit more impact, it doesn't really make narrative sense for a 10-year-old to be the one calling the shots in this big group with a lot of people in it, like a lot of grown, mature adults in it. It just doesn't make sense. Something that I think Season 2 could have done, and if I remember correctly, they were actually going to do in the early betas, that I think would have really, really worked for them, is to have another Lee Clementine kind of dynamic, but like have the roles switched, if I'm making sense. Basically, in Season 1 of Telltale's The Walking Dead, you were playing as Lee and Clementine, and how Clementine saw events and how Clementine reacted to certain things was one of, if not the main deciding factor in the decisions you made. They wanted you to have Clementine in the forefront of your mind while you were making your own decision. And so I personally believe that it would have been really, really cool if there was another character that tried to take Clementine under their wing And so you would express your opinions and your thoughts, and while it might not directly change the narrative, it would influence the decisions that this person who's looking after you would make. Like, instead of being the one being influenced, you were the influencer in this situation. I think that would have made the illusion of choice elements a lot more believable and would have made for a little bit more interesting gameplay, but ultimately, that's not what we got. I'm not going to throw in any clips or examples from Season 2 solely because the entire season is what gets this illusion of choice argument. I do want to make my own separate video talking just about Season 2 and going more in depth into how I think it could have been written better, and also defending it in places where I think people criticize it a bit too much. But for now, we're just going to skim over it since the entire season is the problem, and we're going to move into Season 3, A New Frontier. A New Frontier is undoubtedly the most disliked season of the entirety of The Walking Dead. People don't like it because it follows new characters, it's a brand new continuity, and it doesn't like continue the main story. That's like the main point of critique that I see for this season. But I actually really like it. Don't get me wrong though, don't get me wrong, it does have its problems, and those problems do pertain to the illusion of choice, but I bring up Season 3, and I want to go more in depth in Season 3 because it has kind of like a subgenre of the illusion of choice. Well, two subgenres actually that I don't think we've seen in Season 1 and Season 2 of The Walking Dead. See, when A New Frontier wants to push you in a certain direction, it will do one of two things. Either one, it will give you a choice, and then when you pick that choice, you realize that the choice is a lot more extreme and a lot more severe and escalates a lot more than what the actual option itself implied, and that causes things to get out of hand and you're like very confused and dumbfounded because that doesn't feel like the option that you picked. Or two, it'll give you an option, you pick the option, and then the option will blatantly do a U-turn and basically make you pick the decision that you didn't pick, if that makes sense. Like, say for example, you got asked to do something and you clicked on no, and Javier was like, I really don't think that's a good idea, but I guess we don't really have any choice, like that kind of thing. Basically, when you're playing A New Frontier, you need to be super extra careful about the options that you pick, because the options that they give you and like the results of said options hardly ever actually correlate. Like, there are so many times where you will be picking something and then the result is just not what you picked, if that makes sense. An example of this very first scenario would probably have to be a flashback scene with David and Kate in the kitchen. You and Kate talk about running away together. She asks to join you, and then she breaks a glass of David's, a glass that has a lot of sentimental value. And then David comes in and, you know, starts badgering on Kate, arguing with Kate and stuff. And then Harvey gets involved to try and kind of even things out, because obviously they shouldn't be fighting over something like this because Kate got hurt in the process. And then you have two options. You can essentially back off, or you can tell off David. And a lot of people that I know tell off David, they choose that option. But when they pick that option, they expect Harvey to put David in his place, be like, hey, this isn't appropriate, stop what you're doing, or like point out that Kate's hurt and like Kate being hurt is what matters right now, you know, stop this is immature and this, that, and the other. But what the game thinks telling off David is getting right up to his face and saying, you know what? Kate's gonna leave you.
My CO gave me that. And unless you want to dig up his fucking corpse, he's not gonna give me another one.
Why don't we get an actual dishwasher?
Oh, here we go again.
Then you won't be on my ass anytime there's a spot on a fork.
Excuse me?
If we could even afford a dishwasher.
It is just a glass.
It was important to me, Javi.
A glass?
We don't see your ass for a year. A year. Then when your life goes to shit, we're expected to drop everything and roll out the red carpet. All for Prince Javi. And now you're gonna start telling me how to talk to my wife?
This isn't about him.
Really? He's the one standing right there judging me for something he doesn't understand. You don't know him like I do. Always judging everyone, except himself.
You know what, David? Time for you to open your eyes. Kate's gonna leave your ass.
What?
She told me so.
Javi!
You said that?
Jesus fucking Christ, no! We were talking about traveling and I just... No, I definitely didn't say that. At all.
3 days, then I want you off my couch and out the door. We clear?
Fine.
Javi, that is my husband. We are married, in case you forgot. That's for life.
And oh my god, that's just not what we picked. If I can find some clips, I'll show like a compilation of people reacting to this decision, because this is just so out of left field and inappropriate for Harvey, and if people knew that was what he was gonna say, they would not have picked that option. This whole scene is honestly really upsetting, because season 1 of Telltale's The Walking Dead showed us that you can have other characters change the narrative with their own motivations and their own goals, and have it so it's almost like a tug of war between you and the other characters that have their own reasons for doing what they're doing. And honestly, season 3 could have really used that, especially in this specific scene. If they wanted things to continue to escalate, then they could have done so not with the decisions that you make, but with the decisions that David makes and how David decides to handle the situation at hand. David is a really, really important part of the story for season 3, and so it would have made a lot of sense. It would have been really smart if they used little scenes like these in the flashbacks to kind of have David bounce off of Harvey and show us his own goals and his own motivations, aside from just being a military family man, you know? Unfortunately, I can't actually find that many examples to show in Telltale's The Walking Dead, mostly because, one, it's the season that's the fuzziest in terms of my memory, because I've only played it, I think, once myself. I've seen a bunch of playthroughs, but the last that I've ever seen of A New Frontier was 2019. So yeah, that, and whenever I tried to do research for this season, specifically looking for illusion of choice moments, I couldn't find anything. And unfortunately, I don't have the time to sit down and look at an actual full-on playthrough and analyze every single decision and then put them into this video. I just don't have the time for that. This re-upload is supposed to go up tomorrow at the time of recording this specific section. All I can really say about A New Frontier all up is that it is the most railroaded of the entirety of all of the Walking Dead seasons, but it doesn't get that reputation. Season 2 is the one that has the reputation for being the most railroaded, and I think that's because the way season 3 goes about it, while yes being very blatant and being very narrative breaking, is at least creative, you know? I love when the decision boxes blatantly lie to me and tell me that I'm gonna be picking one thing only to pick something else, you know? It's fantastic, really. Before we move on from season 3, there are a couple of critiques that don't really pertain to the illusion of choice, but I honestly don't know if I'm gonna be making a video on season 3 alone, so I'm just gonna put them here really quick. Well, actually, I mean, I guess this could imply illusion of choice, and that's the idea that this game so heavily relies on you loving Clementine and you having a sentimental attachment to Clementine, that if you were ever to pick options that directly go against Clementine or put Clementine in danger, you can tell that that's not what the developers wanted you to do, because those choices are so underdeveloped and so uninteresting in comparison to the ones where you side with Clementine and you protect Clementine and all of that stuff. I don't know, they were just so confident that you loved Clementine that you wouldn't do anything to physically harm her. And you know what? They were right. Clementine is an incredibly popular character and a lot of people want to protect her and keep her near and dear to their hearts. But they didn't account for the players that would then go back and have a look at all of the other decisions and see how the game changes. They didn't account for any of that. They just thought that people wouldn't have it in their hearts to hurt Clementine, and I thought that was really funny. Another thing is that season 3 has probably one of my favorite cinematic experiences in terms of like familial connections and sibling connections, and that is the option towards the very end with Javier and David, where you have the option to either beat on David and defend yourself physically, or just keep telling him that you love him. And the scene that plays out when David is beating your ass and you're just standing there telling him that you love him, honestly, it makes me cry every time I see it. So I'm just gonna put it here. No connection to the illusion of choice whatsoever. I just don't know when I'm gonna be able to talk about this season again. So here's the scene, and then we're gonna move on as if it didn't happen. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Guys, while I was looking for the clip to show you the scene that I love so much that made me cry, I found an example of the illusion of choice. Basically, throughout this entire season, you, Harvey, are with your brother's wife, Kate, and his kids, who are not with Kate. Kate is their stepmother, Mariana and Gabe. Throughout your entire time together, Kate is trying consistently to be intimate with you, trying to have an intimate, romantic, long-term relationship with Harvey. And you know, if you lean into these romantic feelings, if you flirt, if you kiss, if you guys hook up, you know, then at the end, when she says that she no longer loves David, she will go up to you and she will kiss you, and that will be what triggers the fight that I was thinking about. However, if you shut her down every single time, you guys never kiss, you never hook up, you're very, very clear with your boundaries, then when she says she never loved David, or she can't believe she ever loved David, she then turns around to you and says, I can't believe I ever loved either of you. And then, even if you never laid a finger on Kate, even if you constantly set your boundaries and you never let her touch you and there was no intimacy whatsoever, David will still crack the shits, still believe that you were having an affair with his wife, and that will be what triggers the fight. I have a cat on my lap for this section, so if you hear him, I apologize. I want to give this the benefit of the doubt and say that this is probably a characterization of David, because David is always out to get his brother. He is always looking for an excuse to kind of put the blame on Harvey. He blames Harvey for Mariana's death. He blames Harvey for not being there when their father died. So I will give this scene the benefit of the doubt and say that it is further characterization of David. It just feels like you're taking 2 steps back with him, because up until this point, you've been trying to get on his good side, trying to defend him, trying to reason with him and say that while the way he thinks of things is valid, it's not what other people here want, and he needs to think about other people aside from just himself and his family. And you do see the relationship between them like strengthen, and so it does really feel like you're taking 2 to 3 steps back. And even if this was supposed to be a characterization of David, I just don't think it lands very well. A lot of stuff in this season doesn't actually land very well. I personally find that really upsetting to me, but now I have a reason to put this scene in the video and have it tie into the topic of the video, so that actually does make me kind of happy. Here we go, here's the clip.
You did it, Harvey.
Barely.
Now that we're here, we gotta find something to seal the breach with. All we need is the right vehicle. Oh, that's not gonna do the job, man.
Yes, it is.
What are you doing?
The right thing. I'm leaving. We're all leaving.
What? And going where? You saw it yourself. We're surrounded by the herd.
I'm taking my family out of here. You helped keep them safe, Clem. You're coming too. Let's go. Everyone. We can't wait around.
This is bullshit, David.
Absolutely not. Everyone in Richmond will die without us.
They don't matter, Javi. Don't you get that?
This all started the day we knocked on Richmond's door. We brought this on these people, all of us. We can't abandon them. Not after what we've done.
We're going home, Kate. Back to the last place we were a family. We're starting over. We're all together again. Finally. It's time. All of us. A new day, a new life.
I wouldn't mind starting over. Maybe not back home, but somewhere.
It's right out there waiting for us, brother.
I'll go with you, Dad.
Gabe!
He's my father, Clem. I'm sorry, but he really wouldn't understand.
Think this over, buddy.
Gabe? Is this what you really want?
I know it's scary out there, but I have to.
You don't have to be afraid, Gabe. I won't let what happened to Mariana happen to you. You have my word. I will protect you the right way.
We always hoped you would come back. I wish you'd gotten to know her. Her smile, man, it was like sunshine.
I'm not missing another minute with my family now.
This is what I want.
I understand, Gabe. I'm still going back. I won't be able to live with myself if I don't try to help the people in Richmond.
You won't be able to live at all if you do that. Richmond is compromised. It doesn't matter if there were 5 of us trying to save it or 500. We'd all die.
I know a losing battle when I see one. We're moving out. Everybody get in. That's an order.
How fucking dare you? What will it take, David? What will it take to show you that you do not get to do that? We are not your soldiers. Run away home. Be a deserter. I am done with you. I can't believe I ever loved you. I can't believe I ever loved either of you.
Javi, what the hell is she talking about? Javi!
Those were her feelings, David, not mine. I'm innocent.
How much of a fucking idiot do you think I am, Javi? I should have known. I should have known the night Pa died. The night you weren't there. Blood is worthless to you, just like he was to you, just like I am to you. Well, it's time for you to finally learn what blood really means.
David!
Dad!
What do you have to say for yourself, brother?
David! Stop it!
I love you.
No. No, you don't get to say that!
Jesus Christ, stop!
How fucking dare you!
That's enough! Stop it!
David, stop!
Oh my god!
I love you.
No! Stop saying that!
Dad, no!
Gabe!
Oh my god!
You're not taking my family from me!
David, no!
I'm gonna fucking kill you!
Fucking stop!
Morty, stop!
I love you, brother.
No! Ow!
Holy shit!
Moving on to season 4 now, there is only one example that I want to use from season 4 of Telltale's The Walking Dead, and it's the only example that I have because nobody fucking talks about it. Like, no joke, what I'm about to say is gonna be considered an unpopular opinion or a hot take because no one has the balls to critique the very ending of this game. And that is the very, very, very final decision that you make as Clementine in season 4, episode 4, the finale of Telltale's The Walking Dead. Just to catch people up in case it's been a while since they've played season 4, you're playing as Clementine once again. She's much older now. I believe she's like legally an adult now, or if not, she's like 17 or something. And you have AJ, who I believe is like 6, and your job is to kind of be the parental figure. It's kind of like a do-over of Lee and Clementine, except now Clementine is the adult in the situation. She's the protector. She's the one that has to mold AJ's morals this time. And this correlation between Lee and Clementine's relationship and Clementine and AJ's relationship goes all the way up until the very end when Clementine gets bitten. Much like how season 1 only had one ending in order to maximize the narrative impact that this had, season 4 also only has one ending, but you may be wondering if both of them only have one ending and I praised season 1 for having only one ending and explained why it worked so well, then why do I have a problem with season 4 only having one ending? Like, what is the difference here? And the difference comes with one key decision that you make right before this. So basically, the entire plot for season 4 of Telltale's The Walking Dead is that a lot of people consider AJ a threat because AJ is the new generation. He is the first generation of people to not know what life was like before the apocalypse. The apocalypse is all that he knows. And so as such, he's been raised differently and he's grown up to have a bunch of different thoughts and feelings and opinions because he has a survivalist mentality. It starts out in really, really small ways, like when AJ bites Ruby because he doesn't know if Ruby's trying to help you or hurt you, and a really cute scene with Tennessee where Tennessee is showing AJ his toys and before what life was like before with the policeman and such, and then AJ doesn't understand the concept of sharing and so he thinks that the toy is just his. Small things like that.
There's still some left. Probably. A lot of them died when all this started.
Oh, they were weak.
What? No. They were brave. Strong. Now, give it to me and...
No, he's mine now.
Hey, give it back.
No.
You don't even know what they are.
Okay, that's enough, you two. It's not yours anymore. It's mine. No, it's not. Fine.
Thanks.
And then it escalates to some not so cute stuff, like AJ shooting Marlon straight through the eyes, killing him, and not understanding why this was the morally incorrect thing to do. The lack of understanding is so strong that when he shoots Marlon and Marlon falls to the ground and everyone's staring at him, he genuinely has no idea what he's done wrong, and so he repeats the last bit of advice that you gave him when it comes to using a gun, because he doesn't know what he's done wrong. My favorite one is that if you tell him to always aim for the head, then when he shoots Marlon and he stares really confused, he goes, "What? I aimed for the head," because he doesn't understand that even though Marlon was a really disgusting person and did some terrible things, he was still a person, if that makes any sense.
Just give me that. Please.
What? I aimed for the head.
Throughout the season, people will condemn him for his actions, call him a monster, say that he is morally corrupt because of these decisions that he makes. And towards the end of the season, you have a very, very important decision to make about whether or not you trust AJ's judgment, whether or not you think that he is capable of making the tough decisions. And this is a really important decision because not only are you saying that you think he's mature enough to make these calls, you are essentially deciding whether or not you trust AJ, whether or not you think that he is trustworthy and is able to make these decisions on his own. And that is a really, really big mark in the relationship between Clementine and AJ. It's you basically saying that you trust him to know what is right and what is wrong, and you trust him not only to protect himself and know what is best for himself, but also what is best for the people around him. You trust him to be able to consider other people. If you decide that you don't trust AJ to make these calls and you think he should just listen to you or let things play out, then when you encounter Minerva and Minerva is trying to lure Tennessee away, he doesn't end up making any calls there. And so when Lewis or Violet, whoever you're with, jumps over and tries to grab Tennessee, AJ will do nothing, and that will cause either Lewis or Violet, again, depending on who you're with, to die, because Tennessee wasn't able to move, wasn't able to have any conviction. And while Tennessee will be safe, Violet or Lewis will not be. And this happens because you didn't trust AJ. You didn't think he was capable of making those tough calls, and so you lose either Violet or Lewis.
Hey, fucking move!
Let him go! You'll die if you don't!
If you decide that you do trust AJ and he is capable of making these really tough decisions and being able to decide right from wrong, then in this specific situation when Minerva shows up, he decides to make the call and shoot Tennessee so that either Violet or Lewis don't go after him and don't get themselves killed, because Tennessee was being a liability to the group and he would have ended up getting more killed because he wasn't able to carry himself.
Tennessee, move your fucking ass now!
Let him go! You'll die if you don't!
Come with me.
No!
This is a really heartbreaking scene when you consider that Tennessee was AJ's first and, aside from Clementine, only real friend. And so you can imagine the conflicting emotions, but also the maturity that it would take to see your friend, someone who you have such a nice connection with, someone who you're able to relate to on a deeper and more personal level, and have to acknowledge that they are a liability and that more people will die if they continue to carry on and continue to be this liability to the group. It's a really, really touching moment. And I really, really enjoy this concept that whether or not you trust AJ and whether or not you think he's capable of making these tough calls will determine if he does end up making these tough calls, and he does end up being this kind of heir to the story, I guess you could say. However, and this is a major spoiler warning for the final episode of the final season of The Walking Dead, I mean it, if you do not want to see this outcome, please do not watch this section, skip ahead to the end, or just turn the video off. This is very, very immersion breaking because the effects of this decision stop here when Clementine is bitten. We have an incredibly touching and heartbreaking scene where Clementine is talking AJ through what he needs to do in the barn in order to protect himself. And it's heartbreaking. It reminds me a lot of Lee and Clementine in season 1, and it reminded a lot of people of that because that's deliberately what they were doing. And it was just incredible. Like, we were going to lose Clementine after all this time. And, realistically, in my opinion, if you decided previously that AJ was not capable of making these tough decisions and that he should just listen to you and follow what you say, then we would have lost Clementine. He would have done exactly what she asked, Clementine would have died, and the story would have continued through AJ. But, unfortunately, whether you make this decision or not, it doesn't matter if you decided that AJ is capable of making these decisions or not. It doesn't matter if you decided that he needs to listen to you or he's mature enough to make these own decisions, because he doesn't listen to Clementine regardless. He decides to make the call himself, and regardless of whether you decided he can do that or not, Clementine ends up living because of this. And I know what some of you are thinking. Sylv, how does this any different from what you were saying before about characters having their own goals and their own morals and stuff like that? And I'll explain it to you. AJ's characterization throughout the final season is that he has a lot of respect for Clementine. Clementine is probably one of, if not the only person that he will listen to and he will take orders from in this situation. Clementine is his mother. She's his family. It's all he's ever known. There is an air of respect and a sense of duty to Clementine that comes from AJ, and the entire season is you shaping whether or not he's able to make these decisions and he's able to defend himself. Keep in mind, AJ is supposed to be, I believe, 6 in this version of the game. Throughout the entirety of the season, there was not one instance where AJ actively challenged what Clementine was saying. Sure, he would ask questions and he would explain his side of things, but as soon as Clementine explained why it was wrong or explained why it was immoral and why he should be doing things differently, he never ever disagreed with her. He might have grumbled and mumbled a bit, but there was that respect. He decided that what Clementine said was law and he would follow that, whether he wanted to or not. It would have made more sense narrative-wise if we had seen earlier instances where AJ and Clementine were actively butting heads on AJ's decisions. If we had already established that there was a conflict between whether or not AJ was capable of making these own decisions, then it would make sense when you decide that he's not capable of doing this and then he goes against your word and decides to save you instead of killing you, if what I'm saying makes sense. His entire character is listen to Clementine, do what Clementine says. And so for the very, very final decision of the game, if you decide he's not capable of making his own decisions and he actively ignores you and decides to make his own decision anyway and save you, it feels out of character for that version of AJ. This is just another example of the developers expecting you to go one way, so much so that they underdevelop the other options. If you choose to trust AJ, and you trust him to make these calls, then this makes a lot more narrative sense, as I already said. But then if you choose not to trust him, then this is just a really, really harsh contradiction of his entire character. And while yes, I do agree that having multiple endings to a game, especially multiple endings to the finale of a game, like the very final season that will release, does trivialize the emotional impact of the ending. It does. But in this specific situation, I feel like having multiple endings would have actually benefited the game. The whole thing about this game is talking about the next generation, about how kids are the future and how we should trust the younger generations to make the appropriate calls and actions required to have a more sustainable future. And so if you didn't trust AJ to make these tough decisions, then it makes sense that you should get a quote-unquote bad ending, because you're trying to continuously project old morals and the old way of life onto a new generation that has a completely different mentality to you. That, or, you know, just keep the game having one ending, but then actually add instances earlier on in the game where AJ is known to be butting heads with Clementine so that the ending makes sense no matter which way you go. But oh my god, this is a long video. Okay, so moral of the video. In all honesty, the only reason I made this video is because I see a lot of people calling specific things in the game illusion of choice, when I personally think that that could be excused with the character development and the character writing, and how Telltale doesn't actually explicitly say that you control the narrative. They say that the story is tailored to your decisions and that you can push a story one way or the other. They try to make it clear that their games are more interactive stories. It's more about the journey to the destination and not the destination itself when it comes to these games. And yeah, I was just really confused about how some people were saying that something was the illusion of choice and that it was a bad thing and it was bad writing, when from my perspective, I could see how it was actually decent writing and actually develop the characters further. And so that's the main reason I wanted to talk about this. Also, I just really love The Walking Dead, you know? Obviously, just because I am a writer and I like to do character-driven narratives, that doesn't mean that my opinion is law. If you disagree with me and you think that this is bad writing or that the illusion of choice it shouldn't be excused in any way, I will personally disagree with you, but you're entitled to that opinion. I'm not trying to say that people who think that are like objectively wrong and that they're stupid or this, that, and the other. This is just my perspective as someone who likes to write these kinds of things. And if there were any other instances of the illusion of choice in Telltale's The Walking Dead that I didn't mention and that you want to know my opinion on, just leave a comment and I'll try and make a little concise response about what I think about that specific instance of the illusion of choice. There are so many in these games. I just kind of picked the ones that were like at the forefront of my brain when I decided I wanted to record this video. I do also want to talk about other video games that have this kind of problem, and also just other series in general and like the narrative structure of other series and how I feel about those. So if you have a particular game, TV show or movie that you want me to talk about, also just leave it down there and I'll have a look when I can. But otherwise, yeah, y'all know the drill by now, and if you don't and you're new here, then here we go. Stay warm, stay cozy, stay toasty. If you sneeze during the video at any point at all, then bless you. And oh yeah, shameless plug, check out my graphic novel, links in the description. Bye bye.